Last week, there was a decision leaked from the Supreme Court. It was actually just a draft of a decision. And the draft basically stated that the Supreme Court of the United States intended to rescind the Roe v. Wade decision. Now, this won't actually have much of an impact on the ability to get an abortion in the United States, right? Because the Roe v. Wade decision was a horrible decision on multiple grounds that aren't worth getting into at this point. But the point I want to make is that, see, because of this leak, the left has gone a little bit nuts again, and now abortion is the current thing again. And, these pro-abortion people are actually carrying out terrorism. Oh, yeah. They're like throwing Molotov cocktails at religious centers that try to help young girls who are pregnant or women who are pregnant to keep their babies and stuff like that. They're also terrorizing the homes of some of the Supreme Court justices. I mean, this is actually against federal law, and the fact that the Biden administration is doing nothing about this, it's just an outrage. But, we get outrages every day by the bushelful, and so at this point, we're all outraged out, if you will, Anyway, the point. You have to ask yourself why the incredible vitriol of these leftist terrorists, because that's what they are. If you throw a Molotov cocktail at some crisis center that's run by a religious organization, if you if you graffiti, a church, a Catholic church, and if you threaten judges, this is terrorism. Plain and simple, man. You're using the threat of physical violence or actual physical violence in order to carry out a political objective. That's the definition of terrorism. That's what we're dealing with. You have to ask yourself why. Why? Why are all these people so hysterical? Why are they so willing to carry out acts of violence? And you start to realize that what's really going on is that they are finding an outlet for the misery of their lives. Because look at the typical leftist, the typical soy boy with the purple hair, in some urban environment, barely making ends meet. He studied, I don't know, basket weaving in Uganda or some nonsense like that. And he went into debt for, maybe $100,000, maybe more. Some of these people, they realize that they need to get more and more degrees, or they think that they need to get more and more degrees in order to pay off the old loans. So they take on new loans and they wind up with $250,000 worth of debt and a PhD in Harry Potter or some nonsense like that. I mean, it happens. Anyway, the point. These people are crushed by student loans with some degree that is perfectly useless. They threw away 4 years of their lives and learned absolutely nothing at a peak moment intellectually when they could have learned something truly useful that would have stood by them the rest of their lives, but they learned basket weaving in Uganda and the symbolism of Harry Potter. And now they're slinging mocha lattes at the local Starbucks. And they can barely afford to make the minimum payment on their student loans. They can barely afford to live in a house with 5 other roommates. They don't have any kind of real social life because they can't afford one. They can't get a woman because they're too broke. And frankly, because of the misery of their lives, they lack confidence. They have no confidence whatsoever. They feel diminished, emasculated. And so, a lot of them try to please women and be, the good feminist, the good feminist ally. And of course, women find such men repulsive and want nothing to do with such a man, such a loser, because that's what they are, a loser, because women instinctively realize that the guy is just trying to placate them because the guy's got nothing going for himself. He's got no future in his profession at Starbucks. He's saddled with debt. And the most important thing, and you have to understand this, he feels powerless. Powerless. Because he did everything that his society told him were the right moves. He took every path that he was told would lead him to a satisfying, successful life, and that proved to be a lie. And now he's broke, over-indebted, living a miserable life, and he feels hopeless. And because of his hopelessness, he needs an expression for this impotence that he has. He needs to feel some measure of control And I'm stating this, in the masculine pronouns, but it's also for the women too. The women feel completely powerless. The women feel that they've been, sold a bill of goods, and a lot of them in their late 20s and their 30s, and they have nobody in their lives. They were taught that feminism would be the answer to all their prayers, and here they are at 35, 38, with cats, wine on the weekends, no man, and more importantly, no children. They fundamentally realize that children are what make women happy. And they hate that reality. They hate that biological fact that, rules them because it's the truth, but okay, fine. They hate that fact. And so all of this resentment, all this powerlessness, all of this rage and anger of effectively having thrown away their lives pushes them, or let me phrase it, it fills them with such rage that they need to express it. And they express it with violence. And they express it with hysteria. And as the economic situation becomes worse and worse, as these people are economically squeezed by the collapse in the Western economies, as they start to actually wonder whether they're going to be able to afford food after paying for the rent, let alone the heat, when they start making such calculations, their rage is only going to increase. So you have to understand that this abortion issue and the hysteria that has been triggered by it, it has nothing to do with abortion. Abortion, it could have been anything. It could have been, the symbolism of Harry Potter or basket weaving in Uganda. It doesn't really matter what it is, okay? It's what's going on is that these people feel such frustration that they need to let it out somehow. It's building, it's getting worse. And as it gets worse and worse, the political violence will become worse and worse. And as the economic situation becomes increasingly deteriorating, we are going to see more and more leftist violence. And it's going to be outrageous. You have to understand what's going on. You have to understand that it's not abortion. Abortion is just the trigger. It's just the thing that they can aim their anger and rage and impotence at. What's really going on is that this entire generation of young people between 22 and 40, they've all of a sudden realized, or they are in the process of realizing, that they threw their lives away on bullshit, and now they're stuck with the bill.